I joke about this sometimes that when people are very young, relatively young I should say, maybe they're in their 40s or something like that, they want to be called karma yogis. And once they grow a little older, they would like to be called as Gyanees. As long as your hair is still black, you want to be considered to be karma yogi. People feel that Bhakti Yoga is not for them.
Correct. It's only for after you cross the 60s. And for the ladies, like we discussed.
Yeah, like it's for the ladies. People, they like to be called Jnana Yogis. But then actually Jnana Yoga is not simply about taking a book and reading it. It's about practicing a particular lifestyle.
I see. Okay.
And that lifestyle is being described here.
Yeah.
See, mind you, we are in the section of Jnana Yoga. Even though we are in the section of Jnana Yoga, Krishna is bringing back Bhakti Yoga again and again. Because even to progress on the path of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga is a prerequisite. That surrender to God is a necessary ingredient to progress in the path of knowledge. So all the cause and effect that we observe within this world, it is happening as per the laws of nature. The laws of Prakriti. But the cause of Sukha and Dukkha that the living entity is experiencing is because of the desire to be the enjoyer. Still, because you have detached yourselves from becoming the enjoyer of this world, you are freed from
happiness and distress.
Happiness and distress, from the duality of this world.
I'm saying so very relevant in today's context of climate changes. So very relevant. Nature has its own path, but because you've been trying to enjoy parts of that nature faster than what nature has planned, that's what is probably going to cause a lot of distress. Morning, Prabhuji. So we started with the 13th chapter last time, and we went on to, the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 verses, and we were midway through where you touched upon aspects like cleanliness, humility, all of that. So over to you. But one of the things I wanted to touch upon is, he mentioned some very interesting aspects also during this. For example, solitariness, really, staying away from mass of people. Why is all of that coming here on your path to spirituality and knowledge of spirituality, and for removing the fog around the material aspects?
You see, that's a good question that you're asking here, because I'll read the original verse here. Krishna says, he lists the items of knowledge here, right? He says cleanliness, steadiness, then self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of ahankar. He's speaking about the different qualities here, humility, tolerance, simplicity, etc., which we discussed last time. And then, as he rightly pointed out, he's speaking about aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people. These things are being mentioned here. See, the question that you asked, it kind of set me thinking that a lot of times in the modern day world, people want to see themselves as Gyanees. I joke about this sometimes that when people are very young, relatively young I should say, maybe they're in their 40s or something like that, they want to be called karma yogis. And once they grow a little older, they would like to be called as Gyanees. As long as your hair is still black, you want to be considered to be karma yogi. Once the hair starts graying, you want to be called as Jnana Yogi.
Correct.
And people feel that Bhakti Yoga is not for them.
Correct. It's only for after you cross the 60s, 65s.
Yeah, they feel that.
And for the ladies, like we discussed.
Yeah, like it's for the ladies. Bhakti Yoga is for the ladies. People generally feel that. Correct. See, even older men, they might be retired, but still they feel that it is below their dignity to be called Bhakti Yogis, because Bhakti Yoga involves taking shelter of. We have discussed this earlier also. It involves swallowing your ego. It involves surrender.
Yeah.
And surrender seems to be a little hard to accept.
Yeah.
For men especially,
Correct.
I should say.
Correct.
But very interesting here, one of the items of knowledge which Krishna is describing from text 8 to 12 is Mayi chananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. See, the different things that will help you grow on the path of knowledge, 20 items are being listed here. And one of the items is Mayi chananya yogena bhaktir avyabhicharini. Bhakti Yoga helps you grow even on the path of Jnana.
Knowledge, I see.
Ananya Yoga, one pointed Bhakti Yoga is very useful to grow on the path of Jnana. See, people, they like to be called Jnana Yogis, but then actually Jnana Yoga is not simply about taking a book and reading it. It's about practicing a particular lifestyle.
I see. Oh, okay.
It involves a particular lifestyle, and that lifestyle is being described here.
Yeah.
Right? The things that are being said here is aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, etc., etc. These are integral parts of jnana. For you to be able to receptive to knowledge, you have to detach yourselves from the external world now to grow on the level of your consciousness. So technically speaking, the path of jnana goes hand in hand with retirement. So once you retire from this world, you dwell totally into spiritual activities and you cut off yourselves from the outside world. So that is why typically jnana is associated with Vanaprastha ashram.
I see.
So there is brahmachari, grahastha, Vanaprastha. Generally during grahastha ashram you are karma yogis.
Correct.
And after retirement you become a jnana yogi. We've discussed this
in the past.
When we are in the third chapter also. Yeah. The same principle applies here also. In order to progress on the path of jnana, you have to practice these things also in addition. You have to kind of choose the right kind of association which will help you grow on the spiritual path. It's an integral part of jnana here. So, we can go on discussing this indefinitely.
20 of them.
Yeah. See, one particular point here, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest. So ideally speaking, when you retire from active life, you should think in terms of how to become detached from children, wife, home and the rest if you want to progress on the spiritual path. Nowadays what people are doing is generally, I'm not trying to be judgmental here, but the general tendency is people become more involved with their grandchildren. Ideally speaking, retired life is the best suitable opportunity to wholeheartedly progress on the spiritual path. See, the path of jnana involves a lot of tapasya also. Why tapasya is very much integral with jnana, understanding is very simple. Because as a grahastha, you have indulged in a lot of indriya tripti or sense gratification. And in Vanaprastha ashram, when you are on the path of jnana, you have to undo all of that. The train is moving at full speed. For it to come to a halt, you have to brake all of a sudden. And braking all of a sudden will cause certain jerks. So tapasya is an integral part of Jnana Yoga.
Got it.
Actually. Okay. So then he goes further here. Then he speaks about what is Jnana. He has described the path of Jnana now. What is knowable? The path of Jnana is explained here. Jnayam yattat pravakshyami yajñatvam mradamashnute anadimat param brahma nasadannadaduchyate. I shall now explain the knowable, knowing which you will taste the eternal. Brahman, the spirit, beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So, what is truly knowable is the atma, the soul. See, ultimately, people, when they acquire knowledge in this world, what is the purpose of acquiring knowledge? Children, they go to school. Where do they go to school? For a better life. Better life means what? You are experiencing happiness. Ultimately, we are all seeking happiness. And we seek knowledge for happiness only. A lot of research is going on in the modern day world. And ultimately, all this research is geared towards making human life better on the planet Earth. We are all in search of nectar, amrit, which is immortality, which is happiness, joy. everything is referred to as Amritam here. But what actually gives us Amritam, what actually gives joy and happiness to the soul is an understanding of our own atma, our spiritual self. An understanding of our spiritual nature gives us actually true joy. And because that is the thing that actually gives us joy, Atma Gyan is the only Gyan that is worth knowing, according to the Bhagavad Gita.
I see.
Correct? And then he says, so first of all he says that the thing that is knowable is Atma, and in the future verses he says that the other thing that is knowable is the Paramatma.
Oh, I see.
God.
The Supersoul.
The Supersoul. So within our own heart there is the Atma and the Paramatma. Situated along with the Atma is the Paramatma also. So one entity who is knowable is ourselves, the Atma. And another entity that is knowable is the Paramatma, the God who is situated within our own hearts. So he describes that in the next few verses. And text number 15 he says, the Supersoul, the Paramatma is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, the gunas, and at the same time he is the master of all the modes of material nature. And then in that way he goes on describing the Paramatma in the next few verses. And then again in text number 19 he says, Iti kshetram tata jnanam jneyam choktam samasata mad bhakta etad vijnaya mad bhava yogapadyate. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. So far Krishna has explained kshetra, kshetragya, jnana and jneya.
Yeah.
He has explained all these things.
Four of them
he has explained. Now he says, what makes you qualified to understand this knowledge thoroughly? He says, Mad bhakta etad vijnaya mad bhava yogapadyate. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly. See, mind you, we are in the section of Gyana Yoga. Even though we are in the section of Gyana Yoga, Krishna is bringing back Bhakti Yoga again and again. Because even to progress on the path of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga is a prerequisite. That surrender to God is a necessary ingredient to progress even in the path of knowledge. And then he says, then he starts speaking about Purusha and Prakriti. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhaupi Vikaram Shagunam Chaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So he's describing Prakriti. Prakriti is nature. The world that we see around us, that is Prakriti, the material existence. Prakriti, Purusha is the living entity, the Atma. And both are beginningless.
I see.
But the transformations that we observe is because of transformations in Prakriti. But because actually the soul is changeless. Correct? And then he speaks text number 21, which is a very, very important verse. He says, Karya karana kritratve hetu prakritiruchyate purushaha sukha dukkhanam bhoktratve heturuchyate. The translation goes, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. See, karya karana kritratve. Karya is effect, karana is the cause. Karana is the cause and karya is the effect. So all the cause and effect that we observe within this world, it is happening as per the laws of nature. The laws of Prakriti. So nature is behind the cause and effect that we observe around us. Karya karana kritratve hetu prakritiruchyate purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktratve heturuchyate. But the cause of sukha and dukkha
is the living entity.
Is the living entity is experiencing is because of bhoktratve heturuchyate. The word is used here, bhoktratve. The desire to be the enjoyer.
I see.
See, when the living entity tries to enjoy Prakriti, he or she causes his own happiness and distress.
I see.
Which also goes to show that if the living entity ceases to trying to be an enjoyer of this world, you are freed from happiness and distress. See, the laws of nature will continue. The laws of nature is going to continue. Even though the laws of nature might continue, still because you have detached yourselves from becoming the enjoyer of this world, you are freed from
Happiness and distress.
happiness and distress, from the duality of this world. This is a very important point that Krishna is bringing about here.
I'm saying so very relevant in today's context of climate changes. So very relevant. Nature has its own path, but because you've been trying to enjoy parts of that nature faster than what nature has planned, that's what is probably going to cause a lot of distress.
Yes.
You enjoyed the past.
Yes. So, a person might be situated in this world. A person might be situated in this world, and a person's body might be following the laws of nature. Just because a person is self-realized doesn't mean that that person will cease to grow old. The body will follow the laws of nature.
So the law of nature will run.
Because the mind is also material. The intellect is also material. We have discussed this before. Man, buddhi, ahankar, they're all material elements. They will follow the laws of nature. But then, because you have detached yourselves from the propensity to be the enjoyer of this world, you are unaffected by the external changes. You are unaffected by the bodily changes. You are unaffected by the changes of the mind. You are unaffected by the changes of the intellect also. So such a person is called Jivan Mukta. And ultimately through the path of Jnana, ultimately the goal is to reach this particular point wherein we are detached. The living entity becomes subtly detached from the world that surrounds it. That is the whole goal here. See, I think some Russian scientist, I forget the name of the scientist, he had performed this experiment that mouse was kept in a cage, and within the cage he had placed 2 pieces of cheese. If the mouse tried to eat 1 piece of cheese, it used to get shock. Okay, let's say a piece on the left, a cheese on the left, a cheese on the right, a piece of cheese on the left, a piece of cheese on the right. So if we tried to eat the cheese, a piece of cheese on the left, it used to get a shock. And if we tried to eat the other cheese, it used to enjoy the cheese. So once or twice the mouse got the mild shocks, and eventually it understood that it shouldn't touch the left cheese. You have to eat the cheese on the right. Then it started eating the cheese on the right. After a while, the scientist swapped. Cheese on the right started giving you shock, cheese on the left ceased giving shock. Initially, the mouse was a little confused. But then, it understood in due course of time. Then it started eating the cheese on the left once again. Then it was getting used to eating only the cheese on the left. The scientist again flipped it. He kept flipping over and over again. And meanwhile, he opened the doors of the cage. Meanwhile, the mouse is busy figuring out which cheese gives you shock, which cheese doesn't give shock. The mouse doesn't realize that the cage is wide open for it to go away from the cage. See, as long as we are absorbed in trying to enjoy the resources of this world, we fail to realize that the path to liberation is open in the human form of life. So this bhoktrutva, the tendency to be the enjoyer,
continuing to be the enjoyer,
that we have to give up. See, not wanting to be the enjoyer. See, the word bhoga, bhoktrutva is very, very special. Sanskrit is a very special word. See, certain words, if you remember, in a very long time ago in one of the sessions we were discussing that how Prabhupada had to coin the word deity.
Yeah, idol and deity.
Idol and deity.
Yes, I remember that.
Because in English,
it doesn't exist in English.
It doesn't exist in English. So similarly, there is no equivalent for the word bhoktrutva in English actually. See, in English, the general word is enjoy. Enjoy. Correct. Maybe my knowledge of English is like, I'm not really sure about this here, but as far as I understand, in English, enjoyment is enjoyment. So when so here, when it is explained here, bhoktritve, what the nuance of the word bhoktritve is your propensity to be the enjoyer. Enjoying life, there is nothing wrong with it. But wanting to be the enjoyer, there is a problem there. See, typically, when you are offering food to God, it's called bhoga. Remember?
Correct. Yes.
Bhoga.
Yeah.
Bhoga means it's for Krishna's enjoyment. And then what you get is prasad.
Correct.
So when you're eating prasad, you're enjoying the prasad. But that prasad that you're enjoying is passive enjoyment, not active enjoyment.
You're the first source.
You're a secondary enjoyer. So secondary enjoyment is not a problem. When we put God in the center of our life, and putting God in the center of our life, when we enjoy life. And when we put God in the center of life, that's when we actually enjoy life.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong with that enjoyment. But when you want to be the center of existence, and when you want to portray yourself as
the key enjoyer. Primary enjoyer.
That's the problem of sukha and dukkha of this world.
I see.
See, if you want to be the enjoyer, if you want to enjoy something, suppose you want to enjoy a car, thoroughly want to enjoy a car, you'll have to own the car.
Correct.
And you truly own the car to the extent you have control over the car. So, within that enjoyment is controllership and ownership also. So, when the living entity is wanting to enjoy the resources of this world, wants to be the owner and the controller, they become more and more entangled within this world, and because of which they are entangled in happiness and distress. So the living entity is himself responsible for one's own sukha and dukkha. So there is no point blaming material nature for one's sukha and dukkha here. That is the whole point here. And then Krishna goes, the next verse he says, Purusha prakritisto hi bhungte prakritirjan guna karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. The living entity is in material nature, thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature, thus he meets with good and evil among various species of life. So, Purusha prakritisto hi bhungte prakritirjan guna. The Purusha, the living entity, situated in Prakriti, prakritisto hi bhungte prakritirjan guna, tries to enjoy material nature through the different gunas. The gunas we are going to discuss in great detail in the next chapter. So, bhungte prakritirjan guna, karanam guna sangosya. And because of this, the person gets entangled in the three gunas and goes through the various species of life. Sadasad yoni janmasu. Explain the entanglement of the living entity. Now, apart from this Purusha, one Purusha is the living entity, the soul. Actually, the only Purusha is God. Purusha means the enjoyer. As I said, God is constitutionally the enjoyer and we are constitutionally the enjoyed. Prakriti is the enjoyed, Purusha is the enjoyer. See, this is like very subtle connotation here. Purusha is enjoyer, Prakriti is enjoyed. Purusha is the energetic, Prakriti is energy. So, constitutionally, the living entity is Prakriti. Because we are an energy of God. If you remember in the 7th chapter, Krishna has said, Aparayam etastvanyam prakritim vidyame param. The living entity is one of the energies of God, superior energy of God, but nonetheless an energy of God. So, we are the energy and we are meant to be enjoyed by the Purusha, Sri Krishna. But when we try to be independent enjoyers ourselves, when we try to put ourselves in the center, that's why the Gita calls the living entity also Purusha here.
I see.
Actually, the only Purusha is
God.
We are constitutionally Prakriti. But nonetheless, there is one more, the real Purusha, who is also situated within the heart. Krishna makes it very clear in text number 23. Upadrashta numantascha bharta bhokta meshwaraha Paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin Purusha paraha. So here Krishna is speaking about Purusha para. He described Purusha in the previous verse. And here Purusha para. Para Purusha means transcendental personality. who is also situated within our heart. And this Paramatma, an expansion of the Supreme Lord, the Paramatma, who is situated within our own heart.
The Supersoul.
The Supersoul. So, what are his activities? It's being described in this particular verse. Upadrashta. Upadrashta is the overseer.
Supervisor.
Overseer. Upadrashta Anumantacha. He's the permitter. He's the sanctioner.
I see.
Upadrashta Anumantacha. Bharta. He's the maintainer. He is maintaining all living entities. He is our maintainer, situated within our own heart. Bhokta. He is the supreme enjoyer. And Maheshwara, the supreme Lord, the supreme controller. Paramatmeti chapyukto. He is called the Paramatma. Desmin. He is situated within our own heart. And he is a Purusha Para. Parapurusha, the transcendental personality. Now here, when I read this verse, generally, I think we're discussing the example of parents. Paramatma is an ideal parent. If we want to learn parenting, we should learn from Paramatma here. Because Paramatma, Upadrashta, he is the overseer. He is overseeing everything. He is closely observing the activities of the living entity. And his observation is not judgmental. It's compassionate.
I see.
Like all parents, they're meant to be compassionate, not judgmental about their children. And parents are not judgmental also. Upadrashta Anumantacha. Anumanta is the permitter. Without the parents' consent, children can't do anything. At the same time, like we had discussed last time, the parents don't force themselves upon the children.
Not interfering.
They don't interfere with their free will. Unless they're going really offhand. See, many times people ask this question. If not a blade of grass moves without God's permission, then how all bad things are happening in this world? People ask this question, isn't it? Why is there evil in this world? Why people are able to do bad activities if God is present,
Correct,
overseeing them. So it's explained in this particular verse that he is Anumanta, he is a sanctioner. Just because he sanctions a particular activity doesn't mean that he approves of it.
and he's not overseeing it. He's still overseeing it.
He's still overseeing it. He may not approve of it, but he's sanctioning it. And this happens in parenting also, right? Maybe your child, a very young child, he says that I want to go to some party. And you might know that there is liquor served in that party perhaps. And you may not really be wanting him to go there. But nonetheless, reluctantly you sanction. Because as we explained in our previous session, sometimes the children have to try out these things to come to a mature realization themselves.
Correct.
If you intervene, then your relationship with the child will only worsen.
Correct.
So similarly, the Paramatma is situated within our own heart, waiting for us to reconnect with him. And for us to reconnect with him in a proper way, he can't intervene with our free will per se. But nonetheless, he is doing his responsibility of giving the scriptures. Through the scriptures, he is giving us proper guidance of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. But ultimately, he won't intervene in the free will. Nonetheless, he is the permitter. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. It's a fact. Upadrashta Numantacha Bharta. He is the maintainer. Just like parents are maintainers. Paramatma is the maintainer. Bhukta Maheshwara. Paramatmeti Chapyukto Desmin Purusha Para. What level of compassion the Paramatma has is something worth thinking about, isn't it? It's explained that as long as the living entity is passing within this material existence, as long as we don't get liberated from material bondage, even though you might pass through many millions of species of life, in every species of life, the Paramatma is accompanying the living entity in every species of life. The Paramatma never let go of the living entity. He's always the Upadrashta, is always having a watchful eye on the living entity. And the Paramatma is waiting. When will this living entity turn towards me?
Come back to me.
Come back to me. As soon as even we develop even the slightest desire to turn towards him once again, immediately the Paramatma will facilitate our growth on the spiritual path. See, there is this analogy of two trees situated on the same branch of a tree. The analogy is given. There are two birds. One of the birds is busy is completely engrossed eating the fruits of the tree. Like that particular mouse, the example that I give. This bird is trying to figure out which fruits are sweet, which fruits are bitter, is busy eating the fruits of the tree. And the other bird, the Upanishads explain, is just observing the first bird. And the other bird is not interested in the fruits. The Paramatma, he is not concerned about material enjoyment of this bird. He is just overseeing, having a watchful eye on the living entity. It is explained that as soon as the fruit-eating bird turned towards the other bird, the watchful bird, immediately that particular bird will become freed from all anxieties, stress, and the miseries and sufferings of this world. We just have to turn towards the Paramatma. He is already present within our own heart. He is the closest person to us in life. We just have to turn towards him and he will make himself available. That's what Paramatma Krishna explains in this particular verse. Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunaisa sarvatha vartamanopi nasa bhuyo abhijayate. One who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature is sure to attain liberation. So this knowledge is going to open the path of liberation for you. Because once you understand what Prakriti is all about, what the role of Purusha, all these things, you can become liberated from material bondage. You understand things in the right perspective. He will not take birth here again regardless of his present position. Now, how to realize this Paramatma? He starts explaining in the next verse. Dhyanena atmani pashyanti kechidatmanam atmana anye sankhyena yogena karma yogena jabari. Some try to realize this Paramatma through dhyana. Some others through Sankhya Yoga. Some others through Karma Yoga. And then in the next verse he says, Anye tvaevam ajananta shrutve nyebhyah upasate tepi chadi tarantyeva mrityu shruti parayana. Now, Anyetva evam ajananta. But a lot of people may not be eligible for all these other kinds of yogas. We have discussed these paths in detail in our previous sessions. But nonetheless, Shrutva Nyebhya Upasate. Simply if you start hearing about the Paramatma, Tepi Chadi Tarantyeva Mrityu Shruti Prayana. Simply by this hearing process, one can progress on the path of self-realization. So Prabhupada in this purport, he says very, very nice thing. He says that this verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society, there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Because to follow the paths of Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, etc. properly, we need to have certain background since our early childhood. And without that proper sanskara since early childhood, it becomes a little difficult to take these paths all of a sudden. But nonetheless, through this path of hearing from authorities, simply if we continue to hear, if we continue to hear from authorities in the particular field, then we can also cross the ocean of birth and death. That is the power of the hearing process. And then, achieve of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in existence, both the moving and the non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. Everything is nothing but a combination of Kshetra and Kshetragya. Everything that you see around you.
Correct.
Is a combination of the living entity and matter. One who sees the Supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies and understands that neither the soul nor the Supersoul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, actually sees. The Atma is never destroyed. Okay. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created by material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. And then he goes further. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Kshetra kshetragyayor evam antaram jnana chakshusha bhuta prakritir moksham cha ye vidur yandite param. Those who see with the eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature attain to the supreme goal. So we come to the end of this particular chapter here. In this.
Okay. So he's basically answered all the 6 pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then he is going to elaborate on that further
I see.
in the future chapter.
Each of these.
Yes, we should continue our discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We see that Bhakti Yoga is one of the 20 items that help a person grow on the path of knowledge, Gyan. And though this section is about Gyan Yoga, Krishna repeatedly brings up Bhakti Yoga, stating that surrender to God is necessary to progress on the path of knowledge. We've seen that this requires surrendering the ego, and surrendering per se is a very difficult proposition, especially for men. People like to be called Gyanees, but Gyan is not about knowledge alone. It is a lifestyle. It involves a lot of Tapasya, including the need to live in a solitary place and maintain detachment from the general mass of people. Hence, it is recommended primarily during the period of Vanaprastha, post-retirement. What gives true happiness and joy to the soul is understanding our own atma, atma Gyan. We also need to know about Paramatma, the God or Supersoul, which is always present within our own heart. And Krishna affirms that only devotees can thoroughly understand this knowledge. The Paramatma plays multiple roles, like a parent. He is Upadrashta, the overseer. He is Anumanta, the permitter. And just because God sanctions an activity does not mean He necessarily approves of it. He is the Bharta, the maintainer. And finally, He is Maheshwara, the supreme controller. We understand that nature, Prakriti, is behind all material causes and effects in this world, while the living entity creates its own happiness and distress when it tries to be the enjoyer, bhokta, of material nature, Prakriti. And if the living entity ceases the desire to be the enjoyer, they can be freed from the duality of happiness and distress. We can understand the difference between the body and the knower of the body through Gyan Yoga, or through Ashtanga Yoga, or through Karma Yoga. Of course, in the modern age, simply hearing about these topics and Paramatma from authorities can lead to self-realization and help one cross the ocean of birth